Hello, welcome to my channel and welcome to my website. My name is Daryl and this is Programming in Any Language. The website is www.blackdeathstuck.com. It's where you will find all my videos organized in logical order. You can begin with the basics and then move on to advanced concepts. You can simply start with a speed track, build an application from scratch, which should pique your curiosity with a desire to learn more. Well, we'll now move along to how to write to a file using a loop. It's important to understand all the pieces when writing to a disk file. And it's easy to explain when we just use one record like we did in the last video. But 9,999 times out of 10,000, we are going to want to write a whole bunch of records at once. Yeah, there's those occasions where you just do one, but in general, it's a bunch of records. And this is an excellent time to make use of the loop. This video will show you how to use a loop when writing to a file. When it comes to reading a file, the loop is just as useful. Let's take a look at that video. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to take this little program we wrote for the previous video, where we're only working with one record, and we're going to expand upon this and actually build a list of records that we can actually save to a file. That's normally the way you're going to be doing things, so it's going to be good to see this. We're going to leave what we have here alone at this point in time. What I want to do though is I want to add a couple things. I'm going to take this stuff and I kind of push it off to the side. I want to enter something still going to be used, but let's kind of push it off and send it off to the right here a little bit. And then what I want to do is we're not going to use the process button anymore. We're going to actually add an add button. So I'm going to copy this guy and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to say add on this one right here. We're going to say this is going to become the add button. What kind of add button? We'll see that in a second here. Come up here and make it button add. BTNADD. There we go. Now let's line this all up here. Format, align my middles. That's looking better. Okay, cool. Now what I want to do is I want to actually create a list box. So I'm going to take a list box here and we're going to put it on the form. We'll grab it, set it over here someplace, make it a little bit larger, bring it down, and set it up looking like this. And we're going to call this thing, let's call it LBX stuff. So let's give it a name of LBX stuff. And let's also change the font on this thing so it's large so we can kind of see it again. I think we made these things bold, and I think we made them 10. That way when we start adding data, we'll be able to see it nice. It'll be clear and we will spot the thing. So we've got LBX stuff there. The thing we're going to do now is we're going to be working on this add button. The add button is going to add things to the list box. When we're all done, we want to create something that's going to save this LBX stuff thing right here. So let's go ahead and give ourselves another button. Put it down here. And we'll call this one save. And it'll be button save. BTN save. And that'll do its work. I want this thing kind of look nice and even here. So basically we got it. We're not going to use the process button. We're going to enter something. When we enter something, we're going to do an add. It's going to add it to this list box. And then once we're all done, when we feel like we've got everything we need, we're going to write it to a disk file. That's what we tend to do. So the first thing we need to do is do a file save. Make sure we save everything that we just did. Now I'm going to go ahead and write this. So what I need to do first, I need to go ahead and add, make my add button work. So, and I'm not going to put any checks for this thing. There's no error check, anything like that. We'll deal with all that later. I want to just put in code that's going to make it do the function that's going to be doing. In real life, you're going to want to protect this stuff so only certain data is coming in. And we'll talk about that later. So let's double click on the add button. That's going to create my add function right down here. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 150 so we can see it a little bit better. It's a little bit clearer to see. We don't need the toolbox at this point now, so we'll kind of clean that off of there and get that off the side. And we've got it right here. What I want to do when something comes in, I want to take my text box, I want to read it, and I want to add it right to my list box. I'm going to take that in two couple points here. Since I've made this string input up here, I'm going to use this as where I'm going to put things. So I'm still going to go through the process of reading my text file and then putting it into my string input. So I've got it in a variable. So I'm just going to copy this data and place it right here. And I'm going to say / read text file, text box. And then put this in here. And this will read my text box for me. So that'll do the trick. Great. Once I've got that, that's all I want to do, basically. So it's just going to sit there and do that. I want to clear it maybe. So once I've done it, I can clear it. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my text box txt input dot text is equal to oh boy, equal to quotes, and then I'm going to say text input dot focus. So it's going to sit right there and do it for me. So that's going to do that for us. So let's go ahead and see if this works. We'll file save, and we'll go ahead and run the program real quickly and see what's going to happen. There it is, finally. Okay, I can add Daffy, D-A-F-F-Y, hit add, bang, and it goes away. Suppose it goes into the variable, and it does. Tweety, add, and it goes into the variable. Okay, what we really want to do is we want to take this and put it into my list box. So let's go ahead and exit this out. And before we do this piece, let's go ahead and add it to the list box right away. So / add to list box. The way we do that is we say lbx stuff dot items dot add, and we add the string input. That'll put it in my text box, in my list box, and that's all we really need to do there. So just that one line of command is going to add to the list box. We'll do file save again and see if this is actually working. We'll do a run again, and we'll go ahead and put in Daffy. Hit add. Works fine. Tweety. Do an add. Works fine. Sylvester. Do an add. Works fine. Okay, that's cool. So that's what we want to do. So we want to be able to add all the things we want inside this list box, and we're finally done. We want to hit save and actually process the data and write all this stuff to a disk file. Maybe clear it off after that. Who knows what we'd actually do. So let's go ahead and close this thing off and let's look at that piece. Look at our form again. We've got our add button here. We've got the save button here. We're now going to do that save. We're going to write the save button to actually make this thing work. So we'll do a double click on this guy to open up the event, and there it is. Our button save has been written. We want to be able to open the file. We want to be able to process the data. And we want to be able to close the file. Those are the things we want to actually handle here. Now we're going to do this. Well, we're going to be opening the file, so that's a very simple thing to do. What we need to do is we need to use our stream writer again. We've got that up here. So we put this in last time. We put our system using. We've got our system IO up here, so that's been added. That means I can use the stream reader and stream writer object. Now they are sitting in here for my button process button, but they're sitting out here as a function of this particular event. So they really can't be seen by any other event. They're private to what we see in the button process right here. So I need to add my own new ones down here. So I'm going to do that right away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open the file. I'm going to have to do my stream writer. So I'm going to say stream writer. And I'm going to give it a name. And let's call it, we'll call it output list box. As another name we might be able to call it. And then we're going to go ahead and open that by saying output list box is equal to file, whoa, getting fast with the fingers here, file.createText, and we'll create my list box data, we'll call it, and surround that with quotes, and then put a semicolon on here, and that's going to open the file called my list box data. Where's it going to go? Well, we know from the last video this is going to go in the /bin debug folder. That's what's going to actually keep this thing. So with that in place, we now can go ahead and let's close the file, get that piece done. I like to do the simple stuff first, get the little stuff out of the way, and that will simply be an output list box dot close, and that closes my list box. It closes the file. We're all done now. So now all I have to do is process the data. Now how am I going to do that? Let's think about that. We want to read the entire list box, so we're going to need some kind of a variable that's going to be in there. So let's go ahead and create a variable in here. It's only going to be used with this program. So I'm going to set up an integer called int write counter, and it's going to be counts records being written. And we already have the variable for what we're actually going to be writing to the file, so we're going to be fine there. So now all I need to do is I need to process data by using a loop. How do I do that? I want to use a for loop. So we're going to actually start the process right here. We're going to go ahead and start the for loop. We're going to say for our int write counter is equal to 0. We're going to start with 0. And then we're going to say, as long as int write counter is less than, well, less than what? Less than the number of records inside our list box. Where do we get that from? We're going to have to figure that out and actually use the list box to tell us that information. So let's go ahead and give that a name. We'll call it int list box max. We'll give it that name. It's not set up yet. I haven't set up the variable, so we're just going to put it here and we'll have to set it up later. Then what are we going to do? We're going to increment the write counter it's going to be equal to int write counter incorrect, +1. It is already there. You already finished that for me. So this is good, but I have an error. Int list box max isn't sitting in there. So where is that going to be? Well, it's going to have to be in here someplace. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go ahead and create another variable that's going to be our int list box max, and this will be max number in the list box. Now, how do I get that information? Well, I'm going to have to do that. If I got to this particular button, then I probably am ready to write records. So I can actually just simply say int listbox max is equal to lbx stuff.count. Oh, items got count. And that will give us the number of records in our list box. So we'll be able to step through that and go for there. Int write counter has an error in it. Why does it have an error in it? Int write counter. It shouldn't. It should be fine. Int write counter equals. Oh, because we don't have a. We need to set up our block. After we've done this, we set up our braces, and that creates our block of what we actually want it to do. Int write counter +1. Oh, equals. That's better. Here it's equal to 0. This is looking good. This does not get a semicolon after it because it's got the braces after it. And why have I got int right counter? There's got to be something wrong with the way this thing is spelled. Oh. We need parentheses around this thing. Because it is a group of 3 things it's going to do. It's going to go ahead and set up our initial count. It's going to do our check to see when it's going to stop. And it's going to do our increase, or our increase of the counter, so it actually goes up. Now all we have to do is process the data. So to process the data, we simply have to go LBX stuff dot selected index is equal to int right counter. What does that do? That says I want to look at the index for whatever right counter happens to be. Initially, right counter is a 0. Then it becomes a 1, then a 2, then a 3, then a 4. It's going to keep on incrementing as long as I have my max, as long as I'm less than in list box max sitting out here. So as long as it's less than that, I can look at it. So I'm looking at the first record initially. So once I've got that in place, I've got that index set up there, I then can grab that index and I can say that my str string input, we can use that variable over again, string input, is equal to our LBX stuff dot selected item like the item, there it is, to string. It's like the items thing came up. So what's going to happen is going to take that selected item that the index was pointing to, and it's going to convert it to a string if it needs to be, and then it's going to put it into the text string text in. Then we can actually write the record. So we'll then say our output list box dot write line string input. It's going to write that variable to our string, to our output file. And we're done. We'll simply close the file. Let's see if this works. File, save all. Let's do a run on this. Here's our file. Let's add a bunch of stuff. DAFFY. Do an add here. And do a Tweety. Add. Do a Porky. Add. Petunia. Add. Bugs. Add. And Yosemite. Add. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records sitting here. If I hit the save button, it should write those records to disk. So let's do something. Save. Hey, you can see it move through here. It would have been nice to give us a message saying that it actually did this, but let's see if this thing worked first. We'll end the program. We'll go into our /debug folder. Where's that going to be? That's going to be in this particular sandbox that I've got sitting over here. I'll bring that thing over. Here's our program, write a file. We'll open it up. We'll look at write a file, and we'll go ahead and look at the bin folder, then the debug folder. And here we have, we'll go my list box data is what we called it. And we'll double click on it. And we want to say notepad. I should have had .text on here. We can just say just once for now. Let it come up. It's coming up on the other screen. And Daffy, Tweety, Porky, Petunia, Bugs, and Yosemite are all written here. So it did work. Let's do a little cleanup work and fix this thing. We'd like to change our name of our file to mylistbox.text.txt. That would be nice. We'd also like to put a counter in there. Like when it's all done, is right under the for loop is put a message box. And simply say list box contents have been written to disk. And end that right there like that, and put that in place, and we're all set to go. Now, the other thing we should be thinking about is that when we start working with text data, file data, data that's sitting out on disk someplace, something could go wrong. The file might, your disk file might be full. There might be something where the file's locked. Any number of things could happen. What you can do is you can use the try-catch block to catch any errors and report what it happens to be. I generally write those things first before I do this. But what I would do here is my int is fine here, this is int's fine here, and this int list box gets all this kind of stuff. What I might want to do, in fact, let's give ourselves a comment on this thing. Get size of list box. And let's go ahead and down here, and where it says open, I'd like to put in a try, T-R-Y. And then I'd like to put a set of braces in here. Now I'd like to take those entire set of braces and put everything I've done here so far into there. So in other words, I want to try opening the file, processing data, and closing the file. If everything goes right, this is all I should need. But if something goes wrong, I need a catch. So I'll type in a catch down here, and I'll say exception EX. What that's going to do, let's go ahead and break this down so we got it on the next line here. I'd like to set this up so my catch at EX is going to go ahead and display an error message. So I'm going to say, in fact, message box EX is fine. We can actually use that. And prior to that, I'd like to make a comment here. Display ERR message. If something should go wrong, it's going to display what actually went wrong. And I don't know what it's going to be. I can't predict what it's going to be. But this is going to actually tell me that something weird happened. File not found, disk file full, something of that nature. Something got turned off, and it would give me that error. We'll see this thing work better when we can start to work with this thing and actually cause errors to happen and take a look. But let's see if this thing works right now. In fact, let's follow it through. Let's put ourselves a breakpoint in here. And let's go ahead and run save the program. Save all. That's what I want to do. And let's go ahead and run it. I'm going to bring my watch up here. I'm going to put my program right up here, and we'll run that underneath it so we can kind of see the code. I'm going to start to add my first element, Daffy, D-A-F-F-Y. I'm going to hit add. It goes in there, and I'll add another one. I'll add Tweety, and I'll hit an add here. It'll put it in place. I'll put in Sylvester. And I'll add Foghorn. Just add 4 of these guys this time. Now, since I'm done, I've got this thing working in place. It was working with the other form, so it didn't break. But it will break when I hit the save key. So I'm going to hit the save button right now. What's going to happen, it stops right here. It's my output list. So the StreamWriter starts to execute. Now I can use F11 to step through this thing and watch it actually happen. My output list box is right here. So it goes ahead and opens my file. My int-write counter I need to actually establish. So I'm going to go ahead and do an add watch to this thing. And then I've got my write counter sitting up here. I'm going to hit F11. It's going to go ahead and I also want to set up the list box max and see what is in here. And if we add a watch to it, we can look at it. And there's 4 records in there, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we can see that happen now. Hit F11 again. And it goes ahead and starts processing my data. So it takes my write counter, my 0 here, puts it into the index, and then it grabs it, and in my string input, which I'll also set a watch for, which has Foghorn in it, now it's going to go ahead and, it's got Foghorn because that's the last thing we enter, but now it's going to go ahead and grab it from the list box. And what it puts in Daffy in there. So Daffy is in my output, and it's now going to write Daffy to my output file. So it does the write, comes back and increments my write counter to a 1, goes ahead and checks it to see if it's bigger than max. It's not. Goes ahead and does the write counter again and grabs Tweety and goes ahead and increments the write counter to a 2, goes through the process, takes Sylvester, finally it takes Foghorn, and now my write counter is going to be 4. So my write counter is no longer less than max, so it's going to end the program. Drop down on my message box to say list box contents haven't written a disk. It's going to stay that. It'll come up on our form. There it is. List box contents haven't written a disk. I'll say, okay, thank you for telling me that. And now it'll go ahead and close the file and end. And that's all it takes. So that's how you actually would work with a file when you're trying to write one of those to a disk. It's fairly straightforward. The thing is, you're often using a loop to do this. Let me close this off and bring up my code right here. And you're often using a loop to actually do this. So this is how you end up processing the data. And the open the file and the close the file is tight close to this thing. It's not somewhere else in the program. You want to keep it just where you're going to use it. And then you sit inside this loop and go over and over again. When it's all done, you close the file and get out. And it's you're all done. That's all it takes. Interesting. We use a counter. We know how many records we're going to write. We just keep writing them until our counter has written them all. It's pretty straightforward. You just need to see it to get a picture of how the loop might apply in a dozen other applications. And we'll show off some of those applications in the application section of the website. In that short section we saw with the try catch to protect any user from unexpected errors, that's important too. We'll see that in action in a number of upcoming videos. What you need to take out of this video now is writing the file is generally a separate method from your application. The for loop is well suited to writing a series of records. Tell your user that the file has been written. That's always a good idea. Use a try catch to protect you from any unexpected errors. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to use the website for easy access to all my videos. And if you get a chance, please subscribe. That way, you'll be notified when something new is available. And that's about twice a week. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.